Home Assistant is the most popular open source smart home hub in the world, giving you unparalleled customization and control of your smart home. From access to individual sensors on a device to automating everything around you. It can be installed on a number of devices, and in this video I'll take you step by step through how to install Home Assistant operating system on a Raspberry Pi. So, let's take a look. With Home Assistant being the most popular smart home hub, and with Raspberry Pi being one of the most popular affordable microcontrollers around, it was as if they were made for each other, and in a way they were. With its relatively low price point and its impressive processing power, coupled with its very low power consumption, it comes as no surprise that the Raspberry Pi is the most popular device to run Home Assistant on, ideal for situations which require 24/7 operation. There is a range of Raspberry Pis available, and whilst you don't need the very latest model to install and run Home Assistant, some of the older and smaller models just aren't suitable for this task. The recommended models to be used with the latest version of Home Assistant are Raspberry Pi 5B and Raspberry Pi 4B, though if you have an older Raspberry Pi 3B lying around, that'll be more than enough to get you started, and then you may just want to upgrade in the future. If you're not familiar with Raspberry Pi, they are effectively just a small, bare-bones computer. They feature 4 USB ports, an Ethernet port, built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, ribbon connectors to easily connect things like displays and cameras, a 3.5mm jack, and a number of in-out pins for connecting any other hardware you desire. Whilst you can connect external storage via the USB ports, as standard the boot drive of a Raspberry Pi is the MicroSD card inserted here, and nothing is saved directly onto the Pi hardware itself. So technically you can have multiple cards for different setups and just switch the card depending on what you wanted the Pi to do. Though with Home Assistant you're going to want to run this constantly, so you won't be switching out the card on this one. It is technically possible to use a hard drive or SSD connected via USB as the boot drive, and then you just need a microSD card to inform the Pi on startup that it should boot from the external drive. Today, and to keep things nice and simple, we'll be installing our Home Assistant OS on a microSD card. They really are a digital maker's dream. Now in this video I will be using the Raspberry Pi 4B, but every step I go through here is going to be the same process for all compatible models of Raspberry Pi. In addition to the Raspberry Pi itself, you'll also need a power supply, which will depend on which model you have. You'll need a microSD card, I would recommend 32GB or larger. You'll need access to a computer for setup. Windows or Mac is fine, but there is a stage later on in this tutorial which is slightly easier with a Windows machine, and a microSD card reader that you can plug into your computer. So let's hop onto that computer and get started. There are a few different ways of installing Home Assistant on a Raspberry Pi. You can install it as a container using something like Docker. This is great if you want to run things alongside Home Assistant on your Raspberry Pi, although if you have quite intense things running alongside it, this could affect performance and speed. There is also core and supervised installations, but both of those are more advanced methods that probably aren't necessary for anyone here, especially if this is your first time running Home Assistant. The final method is installing the Home Assistant operating system. This is a lightweight operating system dedicated to Home Assistant that includes everything you need to get up and running, and that's what we're going to do here. To get started, you'll want to download the Raspberry Pi Imager software, available for Windows, macOS or Ubuntu, and you can download it at raspberrypi.com/software. I'll pop a link to this in the video description. Once that's downloaded, get it installed. You'll now want to connect your card reader to your computer and insert the microSD card. When you launch the Raspberry Pi Imager, you'll get a window like this. Under Choose Device, select the Raspberry Pi that you're going to be using. For me, that's going to be a Raspberry Pi 4. Under Operating System, you want to select Choose OS, Other Specific Purpose OS, Home Assistant and Home Automation, Home Assistant, and then select the one for the Raspberry Pi. Finally, under Storage, you want to select Choose Storage and then choose the microSD card that you want to use. This process will format the card, so make sure that there's nothing on the card that you don't want to lose, and make sure that you're definitely selecting the correct card. With all of those selected, you can now hit Next. Then, when you've double checked that it's naming the correct card,
Hit Yes to confirm that you're fine with the contents of the card being erased. This will then prepare the files, format the microSD card, and finally verify that the files have copied over successfully. Once complete, the Raspberry Pi imager will let you know that the write has been successful and tell you that you can now remove the SD card. With devices like this, where you need maximum reliability, even with the improved stability of modern Wi-Fi, it's generally recommended that you keep your Raspberry Pi connected via Ethernet. If you do want to add Wi-Fi functionality, by far the easiest way is to have it connected via Ethernet during the initial boot. Then use the Home Assistant user interface to connect to Wi-Fi, after which you can disconnect the cable. There is technically a way of setting up Wi-Fi for the initial boot up, but it's not always a straightforward process, especially if you're running a Mac. And even with everything in place, people can still experience issues with it, so I'd heavily recommend at least setting up via Ethernet. When the imager finished, it should have automatically unmounted the card from your computer, so you can now physically eject it, and making sure that the Raspberry Pi is powered off, insert the card into the Raspberry Pi, and then making sure that the Ethernet cable is connected to the Raspberry Pi, power it on.
The very first time you power it on, it's going to take 10 to 20 minutes before you can access it, which is the perfect time to go and grab yourself a well-earned coffee, and I think I'm going to do that right now. If you find my 3D printing or MakerTech tutorials useful, or you find my makes or explorations fun or interesting, you can now become a channel member by hitting the join button below one of my videos. As a channel member, you become a 3D revolutionary, getting exclusive access to the 3D Revolution Discord community, early access to almost all my videos. In the future, you'll get exclusive access to additional videos and 3D designs, and now you get members only discount at the 3D Revolution store, available now at 3drevolutionstore.com. Not only will you be getting all of these bonuses and more, you'll also be supporting me and my channel, helping aiding me produce more and better videos for you in the future. Right, wasn't I supposed to be getting coffee? Right, coffee in hand, let's get back to setting up Home Assistant.
Once you've given your Raspberry Pi 10 to 20 minutes to set itself up after powering it on, in a browser on your computer, visit http://homeassistant.local:8123. If that doesn't work for you, you can try dropping the .local part and visit http://homeassistant:8123. If that still doesn't work for you, you'll want to access your router's user interface. Find the Raspberry Pi and get its IP address. Then visit http:// the Raspberry Pi's IP address, :8123. If it just never loads for you, this may be as a result of issues with the information you entered in the My Network file. Whether it works or not, when Home Assistant sees and runs this file, it deletes the file once it's applied the settings internally. So power down your Raspberry Pi, move the card back to your computer, and try it again one more time, double checking you've entered all of the correct settings. This stage can still cause issues for some people. If you're still having problems with connections after a second attempt and you're sure that all the entered details are correct, try and connect via an Ethernet cable. Once you're set up via Ethernet, you'll be able to set up Wi-Fi using the user interface at a later stage. Once Home Assistant loads, it may still be finishing off, so wait until it's finished preparing Home Assistant. Once it's finished, there'll be a button that says Create My Smart Home. Click that. You now need to create a user account. This isn't some user account on a remote website, this is the user account that you will use to log into Home Assistant on your Raspberry Pi. So enter your name, a username, and a password. Then hit Create Account. Home Assistant needs to know the location of where it's set up. It uses this information so it can determine simple things like the time, level of sunlight, and the current weather in that location, and also for more advanced things like determining if you're at home or away. You can then set things to automatically happen based on those conditions, such as your automatic blinds closing if it starts to get too sunny, or a security system automatically arming if you leave the house. Here, you could be really specific with your full address, which you'd need for some features, or you could just enter the city that you're in, and that would be fine for things like the weather and the light. Then click Next. It's entirely up to you if you'd like to share data. Home Assistant is part of the Open Home Foundation, of which promoting privacy and security is one of their core goals. The information you can agree to share here, such as what causes errors to happen, is used by them to improve Home Assistant for everyone. However, whether you agree to any of these or not, it won't affect the functionality of your install at all. Once you've made your choices, click Next. It may have already detected some compatible devices on your network. Don't worry if it's not seeing all of the devices that you'd like to use with it. Some will require you to install product-specific plugins later on. Okay, now click Finish.
Technically, that's it. You're set up and ready to get started on your own unique Home Assistant experience. But don't worry, I'm not just going to leave you at the door here. There is a hell of a lot to unpack to fully understand and appreciate every aspect of Home Assistant. And in this video, we're just looking at getting you up and running. So now I'll take you through some of the need-to-know basics. If you would like a more in-depth tutorial going through the various menus and functions in Home Assistant, similar to my beginner's tutorials for various 3D printing slicers, let me know in the comments below, and if enough of you do, I will make them. Either way, I will be making more Home Assistant videos and tutorials in the future. For now, as we saw when we were setting up Home Assistant, it may have detected one or two items on your network and connected them, but we haven't actually connected and integrated anything ourselves, so let's have a look at that.
Before we get onto that, I'll quickly just mention here that if you've connected via Ethernet but want to apply Wi-Fi settings via this user interface, you just need to go to Settings, System, Network, and then just adjust the Wi-Fi settings as you'd like. Okay, let's move on to integrations. The exact process here can vary quite a bit depending on what kind of device or service you want to connect with Home Assistant, but these are the general steps that you'll want to follow. Go to Settings and then Devices and Services, and here you'll see a list of services and devices that have already been detected on your network and configured for use with Home Assistant, as well as some built-in systems such as Radio Browser and Sun. And above them, any other potential compatible devices that have been discovered by Home Assistant on your network but not automatically integrated. At the top, we have 4 tabs. Integrations are the APIs or pieces of software that Home Assistant is running to communicate with the devices and services. So for example, if you had a Hue smart bulb, there would be a Hue integration that it uses to communicate with them. We'll do this slightly out of order so it makes better sense. Entities are the specific endpoints that Home Assistant communicates with. These could be a button, a light sensor, a servo, a display, or it could just be a specific point on a server that it interacts with. Devices are groups of entities, so it could for example have a 3D printer connected. It would list each temperature sensor and button state as a different entity, but it would list all of them under one device representing the printer. Finally, we have helpers. Helpers are basically virtual devices that can be used to dynamically track various information from entities on your network. For example, you could set up a counter to monitor a smart plug with a device that should only be used 5 times a week. Once that counter reaches 6, it will then prevent Home Assistant from powering on that plug again until the following week. To add a completely new integration, you'll want to go to the Devices tab and select Add Device at the bottom right corner. Search for the company or service you'd like to integrate, then follow the instructions, which will vary depending on what you're adding.
Home Assistant has a huge range of services and devices that it can integrate with natively, but if you wanted to connect to an even bigger range of third-party integrations that aren't shown on this list, you would need to install Home Assistant Community Store or HACS. I've got a separate video showing you how to install and set up HACS, which I'll link to at the end of this video and in the video description.
Once you've got some integrations set up, you'll want to be able to view and interact with them. Home Assistant revolves around dashboards, which are customized pages featuring whatever information you want on them. Many of these tabs in the side menu are default dashboards that you can edit, delete, or add to. Let's create a simple new one to show you through it. To create a new one, go to Settings, Dashboards, and then select Add Dashboard from the bottom right. There are several options to choose from. There's Default Dashboard, which will create a dashboard with all of your devices, and if you've assigned them to different areas, such as rooms, it will then group them based on these locations. At this stage, this would effectively create a dashboard that looks pretty much just like the overview dashboard, but you can then make changes to differentiate it. There's Map, which will display people and devices on a map. You can set up Home Assistant to know your location via an app on your phone, so that automations happen differently, for example, if you're at home or if you're away, or if you have it track everyone you live with, whether your home is occupied or empty. A map dashboard is already available by default on the side menu, but you may want to add different ones just to show specific people or devices. There is an option to integrate a public web page as a dashboard, though only specific websites work with this by default. And then there's the option that we'll be using for now, New Dashboard from Scratch. This creates a blank dashboard that you can build up to feature whatever you want. So let's select that. Here you can enter a title, which will be the label applied to it on the left menu, and you can also select the icon that will be displayed next to it. With the icon, there is a very long list to choose from, so it's worth searching for keywords of things that you're after so you can more quickly see what's available. If you have multiple users on your Home Assistant, you can set it so only admins are able to view this dashboard if they're settings that you don't want others to be able to access. And you can also select whether you want it to be added to the list on the sidebar. If you don't add it there, you can always access the dashboard via the page that we're currently on, going to Settings and then Dashboards. Now click Create. You'll see it's been added to the list on the page here, and it's also been added as an option in the side menu. Let's click it and take a look. It's currently a blank dashboard and there's nothing to see here. Let's click the Pencil Edit button in the top right to add some content. Up here, the pencil button next to Edit UI allows you to apply a title for the dashboard that shows at the top. This is separate to the dashboard title displayed in the side menu. By default, dashboards don't display a title at the top of the screen. If you leave this field blank, no title will be displayed here. Whereas if you do enter a title and save it, it will then display that title at the top of the page. Beneath this is Home with a couple of arrows. Dashboards are made up of views. These are sort of similar to tabs in a web browser and allow you to have different displays under one dashboard. This could be useful if you, for example, have a dashboard called 3D printers. You could then have the primary view give you a simple overview of all of your printers, then separate views for each of the printers individually with far more details and control. You can create new views by hitting the plus button here, and you can rename a view by hitting the edit button here. You can change the view title, or if you apply an icon, it will display the icon instead of the title in the view tab. The URL allows you to customize the link so you can jump directly to that view using the address bar in your browser. And you're able to create custom themes so you can quickly and easily apply different themes and styles to your various views. The view type is basically the layout of how the information you add to the dashboard is displayed. By default, it's set to masonry, which is sort of like each block of information you add building up like a wall of bricks. There's a range of different options here, and you can install add-ons that will add additional styles here. To actually add the information you're after, hit Add Card in the bottom right. A card is effectively a box containing information and controls. You can put whatever you want within a card, and the card makes it easier to see which details and controls are packaged together. You can either select specific entities you'd like to add to the card, or you can select a specific type of card and then choose what you want to display within that type. For example, if I selected Weather Forecast, I could then give it a name, select additional information I'd like it to display, and other options about how I'd like it to look and work. Then I click Save and it adds the card to the dashboard. Let's also add an Entities card, and we'll just keep the default options for now and click Save. You can see that with the default options selected, it's showing me how long until the next dawn, the next dusk, and the next midnight at my current location. Let's add one more card and we'll select Button. This can be a button that switches on and off a light, or starts the kettle, or runs some automation you've already set up. I'll name it Until Next Time. You can set whether or not the name will be displayed on the card. If it's a switch to turn something on and off, you can choose whether it shows the state that the switch is in, and you can choose whether it shows the icon that you've selected above. So if it's a light, you could actually have the icon change depending on whether the light is currently on or off. You can then select what happens when you click the button. If it was a light switch, I'd likely set this to toggle, so if the light is already on, it would turn it off, and if it was off, it would turn it on. You could set it so it only turns it on, and that means that if it is on and you click it again, it's not going to turn it off. But here, I want to do something a little different, so I'm going to select Call Service, which means that when you click the button, it will request a service that you now choose. I'll select Text to Speech and Speak. And under Media Player Entity, I'll select Office Speaker, which is a Google Nest Hub in my office. Under Target Entity, I want to select Google, which is the system that it's going to use to convert text to speech. This is available in Home Assistant by default, but you can add alternative text-to-speech systems. Under Message, I'm going to enter my usual sign-off. Until next time, happy printing. That's all the settings I'll use for now, so I'll just click Save. You can now see we have 3 cards on the dashboard, and I can change the order of them by clicking plus or minus next to the number below each one. Another way of looking at cards is they are effectively widgets. As I showed you earlier with the Entities card, you can have multiple different pieces of information from different sources within the same card. If you click Edit once you've created the card, you can then come in and you can change the order that each of these pieces of information is displayed in, as well as being able to add new pieces of information, edit existing ones and delete them. Let's now hit Done in the top right to exit edit mode. And this is our new dashboard, displaying the weather where I am, the current sun cycles where I am, and if I hit this button here,
until next time, happy printing.
And again, you can have these buttons do whatever you want.
So that's how you get Home Assistant OS installed on a Raspberry Pi and your first integrations set up. Now you've got it set up, you'll want to fit it into a case. There's a huge range of cases available to buy online or that you can download to 3D print yourself. There's a few things that you'll want to consider when choosing a case for your Raspberry Pi. Ensure that it's for the right model of Raspberry Pi that you have, as whilst they look very similar, there are slight changes made between different iterations of Raspberry Pi that mean that some cases aren't necessarily interchangeable. You'll want some ventilation to ensure that it doesn't overheat. Some cases allow you to connect a small fan for active cooling. This isn't necessarily essential depending on how heavily the Pi is being used and what the ambient temperature is in your home climate, but if you can do it, then that's great. Make sure that the case gives you access to the ports and pins that you may need. Some of them don't have access to, for example, the top pins, which we aren't using in this tutorial, but you may decide to use them in the future. I 3D printed this one for my Raspberry Pi 4, but I'll leave links in the video description both to where you can download this one and also a couple of off-the-shelf ones you can buy, which I recommend if you don't want to 3D print your own. Home Assistant is a vast and nuanced world with so much to learn and infinite potential possibilities. This really is just scratching the surface. I will be releasing many more Home Assistant tutorials in the future, including some deep dives into specific features and functions, and looking at how to connect things like your 3D printers to Home Assistant, so keep an eye out for them very soon.
Whilst Home Assistant can connect to a ton of devices and services by default, there's an even longer list of those that it can't. To integrate with them, you'll want to install the Home Assistant Community Store or HACS, which gives easy access to a huge range of third-party APIs and devices, including things like the Bambu Labs 3D printers. I've got tutorials taking you through how to do this, which I'll link to both at the end of this video and in the video description.
So we've installed and set up Home Assistant on a Raspberry Pi, but this really is just the beginning. There is now so much more you can do. But how you do that entirely depends on exactly what you're trying to do. Luckily, I've got a lot more tutorials on the way, including ways that you can integrate Home Assistant with and for your 3D printers and your Maker's workspace. So make sure you hit the subscribe button to see those videos coming very soon. If you enjoyed this video or you found it useful, while you're down there, hit the like button. It makes a huge difference to me. As I mentioned earlier, I'll pop links to all of the software and hardware that I've mentioned in this video in the video description below. Thanks very much everyone, and
until next time, happy printing.
a huge thank you to my 3D revolutionaries for supporting me and my channel. If you'd like to join them and get yourself some bonus goodies, hit the join button below one of my videos. For now, here's the HACS tutorial as promised. Thanks very much everyone, and until next time, happy printing.